Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I have a wonderful episode and an amazing guest who is sharing how she helps her patients get to the root cause of their symptoms. Marina is the founder and clinician of the Harmonious Life Clinic and author. She shares so many helpful insights and takeaways in this episode. If you have ever wondered what could be causing some of your symptoms in your life, in this episode, we dive into that, how so many things could have so many different symptoms, and it's like a puzzle piece trying to figure it out. And that is what she does best with her patients. In this episode, she also shares her personal story of moving to the States. She shares nutrition tips. She's an expert in this area, so I loved what she had to share about that. And, things we can actually use. So much valuable information in this one. I know you're going to love it. Make sure you check out her website, which I'll leave in the show notes, and let me know what you think of this one. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show today. Welcome, Marina. How are you? Thank you for being on our show today.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to share some really practical tips with your audience.
I know. I love this. And we're going to talk about so many things when it comes to our health. And before we get started with that, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about you and what you do, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. I'm a family nurse practitioner that I'm an owner of their clinic in Brooklyn, New York. I serve kids and adults, and basically there's no age is a limit. And I do cover a little huge variety of conditions, right? It could start from gastrointestinal, could be hormonal, could be autism and Lyme. Basically, there's no condition that I do not cover, even though for many years I was convinced I have to pick a niche. But I was like, I don't know how, because sometimes people come, they think they have a headache and it's a headache problem, but in reality, it's a gastrointestinal problem, right? So I'm happy I never actually stuck to, let's say, I'm just doing hormones, or I'm just doing this, because everything is definitely very integrated. And if you think you have, again, let's say even diarrhea, it might be actually your nervous system. It could be anxiety. It could be mental health. It could be nothing to do with actual gastrointestinal problems, right? So, and I do have a big variety of treatment I do. And again, I meet patients where they are. Some people would be just good enough to fix the diet and lifestyle. For somebody, it could be decent list of supplements and some hormones, right? It could be peptides, it could be infusions, it could be ozone therapy, hyperbaric. So I do it all. But again, it's all about options, and I create a perfect game plan, but also it's dependent on person's commitment. And when I have a lengthy initial consultation, I can tell if we're ready to take a jump or we have to do baby steps to make things happen. Because again, some people are just ready for whatever it takes, and some just, to have some progress, they could do literally one change. It could be super basic, like drinking more water or sleeping extra 1 hour for the next 3 months. So yeah, and I do a lot of biohacking, which is interesting, kind of new topic, but turned out to be, I've been doing it way before it became a kind of a trend, right? And now a lot of people are interested in seeing how they can enhance their health. So that's another thing. So focus is regenerative medicine, functional medicine, integrative medicine, is basically nutritional medicine as a foundational anyway, because whatever it takes, nutrition is your primary treatment, because you still do it 70% of the day. Is whatever you put in your mouth will affect how your body responds, how your genes turn on and turn off. So nutritional medicine is still the core of anything you would do for your health.
Oh, I love that. It's so tricky when you were talking about, okay, you could come in for a headache, but it could be something that you wouldn't even think is related.
Right.
And I feel like that's why it's so important to have someone like you, because it's like this frustrating guessing game that it's like a puzzle, that you have to try to solve when it comes to somebody's health, and everybody's so different. So I love all of this. And I want to just ask, I read that you came here to the United States and you were having some issues. So did you get into your field because of like personal reasons, or did you always know you wanted to help people?
Mm, It's kind of a mix because originally I always wanted to help people, but I was literally super afraid of blood. So I would faint every time because my
Oh,
sister was like easy on injuries, like just kind of being very active kid. So whenever she gets like a cut or like bruise or something, she was bleeding, I would just literally faint. And I was like, overall in the back of my head, I was like, how can I be in medicine overall if I'm like I'm literally feeling off in the side of blood. But then I decided to try it even before coming to States. I did 1 year medical college in my country, Belarus. And I was like, oh my God, like I absolutely love it. So like, whatever, let's try it anyway. But when I came to ESA, it took me a while. I was doing just language and just like, basics to get accustomed to the country. And I started having my own personal health issues, right? Which I didn't have back in my country. Like I gained weight like instantly. I started getting chronic headaches. I got like acne, even though I was almost 19. It was like I was done with my teenage acne episode and I was clear skin and I came, it's like all over again. And I had to figure out what's going on. So even though I was so happy because access to medicine here is so much better than back in my homeland, unfortunately, right? I was going to dermatologist. I was so excited, to be able to see and like to kind of the attention you're getting and like kind of cool prescriptions I was getting. But then I was like, it's not working, and I was like, you know what? I guess it's not about like applying some crazy, irritating, like acidic solution on my face, or it's not about like getting a pill for the headache. I was not really like doing anything. It was just really, you're getting a headache, you get a pill. So it's like it was like not making sense to me. And I was like, you know what, I have to understand what's going on. So I had to change my diet, and then I was like, okay, this is actually what helping. I don't need to do this, my skin is clearing up. So that's how basically I figured. And when I already got into nursing school, and I was doing my kind of already mentorship internship, when I was working along the nurses and I see how they do discharge for their patients, especially for young patients who, let's say, had blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, they were given the list of just medications and not explain the diet. And I would see those people would have family and friends bring burgers, like cakes and soda. And I was kind of hinting, like, you can actually change this and this. You don't have to take pills if you are like changes this aspect. And they were looking at me in genuinely disconnected, like not that you don't want to do it, they were like, no, come on, this is just kind of like my genes, my bad luck, it's not about me doing something, right? I was like, no. And it was, I first time I realized it's not like people even don't want to put effort in, they don't believe it has a connection, what you
yeah.
do that actually what your health ends up to be. So I was like, you know what, and I started doing health coaching certification when I was doing my nursing. And then it was helpful because when I was a nurse, then I could tell it's actually so kind of widespread that people just do not understand that actually because again, it's been like 23 years ago. So now I see such a huge difference when I started doing this type of integrated functional medicine. And I was telling people this kind of like basically approach. They were scared. They were thinking I'm a quack doc, they were like, oh, no, what are you doing? And I was really turning people off. And people would not sign up to my health coaching things because it sounded so weird and new and like, what are you talking about? When I was just saying, the results you're going to be getting, everybody was just like, yeah, obviously I want this. But I was so excited about that. I figured this is the way to take care of your symptoms, right? They were getting, like, I was speaking some Chinese to them because it sounded like something new and it's not true. It's not checked. I remember very well when I had a patient who had SIBO, small intestinal bacterial growth. And literally 20 years, even like 15 years ago, it was not a diagnosis. And when the patient I would tell, I think you have like SIBO, the patient came back to me going obviously to one of the best gastroenterologists in the town. She comes back and saying, you know what? They said it's a fake diagnosis, it doesn't exist. You're just making it up to make money. I'm like, OMG, but you obviously feel off, right? Let's try something about it, right? And it's literally at that point, it was not recognized by our medical official society. It was not covered by insurances. It was no diagnosis like this. But literally right now, we have a prescription antibiotic for it. We have a test that also most actual gastroenterologists even do, the breast test, right? Again, back then it was like, I was making things up and just like giving the diagnosis that people don't have, right? So things do change. And literally, that's I think when you come from the experience of your own going through this, it's just really, I can just talk about this endlessly, and it's really inspiring. I can tell. And again, every time it just really gives more and more kind of passion. And overall, it's you can tell it works, right? And again, it's easier for me not to convince the person, but kind of like just give him a little, really kind of more hope and hint that, it's actually not a myth. It's not a magic. It's, you have to do things, but then you give yourself a better favor than just popping the pills, because you can't even compare if somebody even comes to me to a list of medications, right? And you even switch, and let's say you can't really cut down completely to the medications, but you switch to 5 supplements. It's a totally different, basically, health impact, because with each medication, it really does impact more than what you were trying to. Let's say even you had heartburn, and you get in PPI category, which never meant originally to be taken over 12 weeks. But a lot of people adjust on that chronically, which is really causing a bunch of health concerns, bone loss, and poor absorption of protein. And overall, it's lowering, obviously, the whole idea, lower the acidity, but overall, there's a purpose in our stomach pH being so low to kind of prevent a lot of infections that otherwise the stomach acidity would just kill the bugs, right? Kill the bad pathogens. And overall, it's about, again, digesting, breaking down protein. And when we do that chronically, again, it's the whole chain of bad reaction happen, even though, now you don't have heartburn, but you have definitely, even if you don't feel yet, about 5-10 side effects from it, which you were not having clue. That's the point. People do not understand. But they say, but I got better, right? My heartburn does not bother me. But 10 years later, you're going to have X, Y, and Z. And again, even one of the worst one, potentially even stomach cancer, because again, acidity is being changed. So it's really affecting how you're protecting your mucosa of their kind of stomach lining, right? So it's a different story to taking 5 prescription medications and having unknown and cumulative effects, side effects, not even feelable one, right? Versus 5 supplements, even though, let's say you take vitamin D, you think for vitamin D an immune response. In reality, you're getting your T's health, you're getting overall even our hormone kind of support, because vitamin D in fact is a hormone, and it's even considered to be anabolic. It's great for testosterone, it's great for mood. There's plenty of research in terms of vitamin D effects on emotional health, and even literally with people with suicidal thoughts who kind of really improve their outlook and change the mind, basically like a solid 70% improvement, right, in terms of mood and their impact on their overall positivity. And also vitamin D is a huge support for basically cardiovascular health as well, right? So it's plenty of things. You were thinking you're doing for one thing, but in reality you're getting like so many other benefits. So that's like their other way to look at it, because they would say, oh, but I'm still taking things. But unfortunately, yes, most of us, people frequently ask in terms of, can I do it just food wise, right? Depends on the case, right? I always aim, to really try to cover the most things and optimize in health with nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends where you are, right? Let's say if it's just some nutrients and you don't have symptoms, you want more prevention, it could be really sufficient. You want to check your levels, but it depends. If somebody who has already literally a solid chronic diagnosis or a list of them, it would be just smarter, quicker to do at least kind of a temporary boost. I mean, more like stronger things that are more like extracts in high concentrations to reverse the damage. Because, sometimes many things are not reversible. I mean, again, most of them, but depends right, on their specific condition or symptom. So that's the trick in terms of how much better you want to get and how soon, right? So that you can tell if it's just nutritional and lifestyle medicine are going to be sufficient. But God, again, they're super powerful. That's why if you're again, considering I'm taking patients where they're at, right? Because some people would tell, don't touch my diet. Just give me any supplements you want. I'll take them religiously. So basically, it's really personalized, because that also would work. It's going to be still better than doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
So, and then frequently people are like, okay, I think I can change something up, right? So when they start feeling better, then you get more motivational, inspirational, because you see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And then it's easier to talk. So originally, I really just feel the ground where I can bend, where actually person will be able to stick to, commit to what type of plan and basically actions. It could be super minimal and super basic, or it could be a whole list of, interventions.
Yeah, I think that's what's so important about customizing things, not only for what their issues are, but their personality type. Like you said,
Right.
like what are they going to actually do, because you want to see them get results. So you have to kind of work with them on how they are. But I love when in the beginning you were talking about, your story and how you went from, you came, I've heard this story before, coming here to America, which is like great. We have great healthcare and all these things, but also we have like different quality food than, what you were used to. And you talked about, something that you do in your practice. You talked about, you use the word biohacking, which is trendy now, but that's just something that you have been doing for a long time. What are some of those things that you did when you realize, okay, I've come here, I'm all of a sudden having all these symptoms that I didn't have before? What are some of the foundational things? Because I'm sure that is more important in the beginning when you're trying to heal or get better or work on symptoms than like the optimizing, the biohacking, all of that. So talk to us about that, like not only just for you, but what you do with your clients when it comes to what are those foundational things that we need to do before we get to like the biohacking stuff.
Right. All right. So again, foundational things are pretty simple, right? But they're so fundamental, is so critical that if you don't do that, it's like the rest of the biohacking will not pay off. Because again, a lot of biohacking things are pretty expensive, right? So it's going to be a waste of red light mask or red light bed or, expensive again, some tracking measurements. The idea is, in terms of literally, the most foundational things is sleep, right? If I have to kind of pick, unfortunately, one thing, I would start with sleep all the time, because there's so many things going on, right? In terms of sleep hours and quality, all right, that are, if you're not getting that, your whole system, body is going to be kind of really messed up, right? So let's say in terms of timing, right? Because we frequently hearing like, oh yeah, you kind of, oh, but I cannot go to bed like 9, 10 o'clock. It's just not realistic, right? The reality is, at least, you want to be in bed by 12, right? So you don't have to even go crazy about like, okay, 9:30, 10, because this is like overall kind of the best timing for their overall circadian rhythm. But if you don't want at least their biggest mess, you want to be in bed by 12. I mean, falling asleep by 12, because there's so many things going on between like 1 and 3 a.m. That's where a lot of actually brain detox naturally. Glymphatic system, glymphatic system, which is again more like our kind of immune response and their basically circulation part of that aspect of the cardiovascular. But glymphatic is your kind of really brain dumping, right? It's really happening kind of circadian clockwise between 1 and 3 o'clock. And if you miss that deep sleep during those hours, you're really sacrificing a lot of your mental capacity and overall just actually your brain kind of detoxing. So that's more likely to have effects on your emotional and your overall mental health, right? And just overall, like, memory, even cognitive stuff, big time. Because that's like a crucial time biologically, physiologically, for the body to give that rest at those hours. So I would say by 12, so you kind of have a little time to make sure you actually deeply sleep by that time. And hours wise, even though a lot of people, including myself, I was really running on like 5-6 hours for quite a long time. This was one of my last things I just biohacked finally, like 4 years ago, because I was like, I feel great. Why do I have to sleep this waste time and sleep 7-8 hours? Like, I don't even have the kind of what I thought. I mean, even possibility to have so many hours of sleep, because I felt like, I have so many things to do. I want to do them, and I feel good. Why should I even like have 3 hours like give to nothing, right? And just like sleep. But overall, there are really only probably 1 in a million people who don't have the gene that would allow you to have enough rest after like 5-6 hours. The rest of us literally 7-8, and especially women, unfortunately, we like honestly 8-9. So don't feel bad about like saying like, because I have a lot of patients who are women and some come to me like, honestly, I feel my best like 8.5 hours, 9. Like then I'm like, it's something's wrong with me. Not necessarily it's wrong, right? It could be just, like it's not, if you sleep in 10 hours, like anything beyond 9 to make you feel good or decent, or even after that not feeling good, that's definitely questionable. But literally 7 to even up to 9 is actually could be what your body needs, and should not be any like feeling bad about this, right? So that's why this is where you don't want to really negotiate, right? It's really, even though you feel good like when you are 6.5 hours, try 7.5, because that's what I did. I felt good. I was like, let me just try for 2 months, because I was like, okay, and I was surprised. I felt huge difference, even though I had no complaints, right? So like in terms of like how I wake up, I don't have to wake myself up with 10 snoozes, because I was like, just my alarm. Yeah, I was waking up and then I felt like I'm like energetic within whatever 30 minutes, but it was like literally 10 alarms, right? Now I just wake up on my own, right? And it makes a big difference in terms of your energy, even though, again, we sometimes don't understand our potential. You might feel good, but especially if it's something you've been feeling okay for a while, you don't know your potential. You have to really trust the process and the person, especially if you have somebody who works with you, to tell, like people frequently do the blood work, and I look at the blood work and I'm like thinking about my results. I'm thinking, I have no idea how you even walked into this office and and like how you go through the day and you have 4 kids or something like this, because your numbers look like I would not be even to go through like even job a part of it, not even kind of getting so many other things, because a lot of people just very, very responsible, and they just kind of do it on autopilot without realizing this is not how they could be feeling, should be feeling. And so a lot of times I would say like, no, but I don't know, really, your numbers are so low and you're not complaining of energy. And then when they get actually everything optimized, they're like, oh my God, but now I do like 30% better, right? Or more, or now I feel a difference. Because unless it happens overnight, right? Like some big dramatic change, you will not really feel, you're going to tell me 20 years down the road at 10, oh yeah, in my 20s, I felt more energy, but it's not happening overnight. It's a cumulative effect of kind of ignoring some signs, because between well and sick, there's so many opportunities. There's so many things that are like not super good, right? But and not ignoring little things that you feel like, oh, like I'm kind of crashing by 2 o'clock, but then I'm kind of good. Like literally, we have these days opportunities to prevent before we get literally to like exhausted adrenal hormones or to crash in thyroid. Because unfortunately for women, thyroid gland is their defense. I would say it really takes on everything, right? In terms of stress, lack of sleep, the first system that's going to be affected. And then unfortunately, this is the master hormone, everything just going downhill, even especially hormones, and it doesn't have to be, again, when it's flagged on your regular blood work. You want to really know what's optimal, not just what's already officially you have a diagnosis and now you have a prescription medication, go and take care of it, right? So there's so many missed opportunities. Could be in your kind of annual blood work, at least annual, right? Honestly, at least once a year, anybody, literally, even I would say 20 plus has to do it, but honestly 30 plus I would do even twice a year, because then you don't have surprises with your health, right? I think, oh, I never had it. I'm like, give me your blood work. I usually ask patients to bring blood work as old as they can figure out and pull up from their kind of different programs or doctors. And I could tell, I was like, you know what, you were saying you never had it, but I could tell you this is the trend that was going to. And now it's just officially a problem. But it was a lot of times, but we could actually like just support the system, and it would never develop into like hypothyroidism or like adrenal failure or like something that's already like cognitive real feelable changes, because B12 been low for 5 years because of their, let's say, again, stomach issues or not eating meat or some other, could be multiple kind of contributing factors.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of women I talk to, since we're talking about like sleep and energy, that are so tired. They're especially, you know, as we get into this age of we're midlife, we have kids, we have work, we have so much going on. And it's like, I'm sure, especially with your practice, you see a lot of that chronic fatigue. So when is it, you know, this is chronic fatigue caused by something more serious, or this is, I'm not sleeping enough, I'm pushing myself like this. I'm so guilty of this. Like I get so tired, but you know, the show must go on. So I grab another coffee, I push myself, I overdo it, and then I'm exhausted from that. But what are some of the, you know, things that we should be looking out for as far as when is it chronic fatigue and like something more serious? And when is it like we need to get to freaking bed and, you know, like lay off the caffeine and all that stuff?
Yeah. So again, first, if you kind of have a optimized sleep, right? Again, I'm talking about at least 7 hours every night, and going to the right timing of sleep. Again, 12 even to 7 a.m. And the energy is still not improving, then definitely you have to get it checked out, right?
Yeah.
So, but sleep is the first one, because sleep alone can make you feel so misaligned, and then that alone will cause you to eat more, right? Because again, it's more like then becomes the whole havoc, because the beauty of the sleep optimization goes not just kind of, again, as we mentioned, the first things would be feelable is your mental, cognitive, emotional, because you get so much less easily triggered, you know, because it's been a lot of studies actually checking in terms of, let's say in a family, in a partnership, husband and wife, if at least one person sleeps enough, less chance for divorce.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, because at least somebody can actually like filter and like be less reactive and just kind of more kind of like in tune, because otherwise, because everybody is just going to be like aggravated, because that alone makes you just easier to get, you know, like out of balance and more moody and more stressed and more anxious and just more to get aggravated or irritable, you know. So that's why that's first, it improves overall your overall, again, actually relationships get better if you get better sleep, because this is the first thing actually could be the sign, not even the energy, it could be just you just kind of like reactive, you know. Then in terms of eating, if you feel like you snacking frequently, that also is a sign either your energy crashing, because you know you could be actually not realizing your energy is so bad, you're grabbing the coffee, and I have a lot of people saying, no, I just like coffee, I don't really take it for energy. I'm like, okay, let's remove it and let's see, right? And also because that's when you get into this basically lack of sleep, their hormones ghrelin and even leptin, they will be out of balance and you will be hungry, plus you will try to compensate with the food, because you do get either it's caffeine or even calories or sugar, you will give you like a temporary boost of energy. So that's another way if you can find yourself, I kind of need something to rest, you know, it's really could be this is your crash in energy currently, or glucose, it could be different things, but that's another way when you're better in control of your, again, food, right? When you are having better sleep, I can tell by myself, and so occasionally I could do like once a few weeks, like whatever, 5 hours, right? But then I know by my food, I can tell I will be eating more, otherwise I'm good with 3 solid meals, no snacks. In that case, I would snack a few things like chocolate and other things. Again, not necessarily bad things, but I know otherwise I don't go for them. I don't need them, you know? So that's in terms of signs. Again, the best thing is honestly do regularly, prophylactically, extensive blood work, so you don't have to wait until you having this. But when it's a big problem, if it's consistent, if it's really not just once a week, you have it and you know why, because once a week, you, let's say you had a late night, you wanted to watch the show and it kind of, you know, it was a stupid thing, but you know, but if it's every day,
Yeah.
you know, even on the weekends when you have less work or you have a just overall better time and you have less things to do. Again, sometimes somebody weekends are actually more exhausting than the weekdays, right? But again, if it's ongoing and it's not like here and there, it's a sign you have to check it out, right? But the beauty of really doing more like regular comprehensive checkups and like fine tuning, so you can more like really catch it before it becomes a chronic symptom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's really good, because I feel like there are a lot of ways we can clean up our sleep habits. I know there's certain people I talk to that are like, okay, I'm tired, but I know that like you said, I stayed up watching a show and I had to get up early for work. And so, once in a while, is okay. But
Yeah.
like if you're consistently not doing that, at least there's somewhere you can start. You can start with your sleep and make sure that's really cleaned up. I love what you talked about with the food and like the things that you crave, because if you are, I notice the days that I'm really balanced and I've slept really great, I don't have those cravings like I would normally. So what are some other foundational things that you recommend your clients look at after the sleep? Because I know that's the most important thing.
Right. So, in terms of the stress, right? But stress could seem like it's non-modifiable factor, right? Because again, you like have the job and you have like their commitment, but it's more about still perception, because it's not about our actually, because you can have 10 women and they could have exactly the same routines, life commitments, but one will rate, again, her stress levels 0, one will rate to 12, right? So it's all about how you take it. And that's why also just to understand where you are, right? Because how it impacts, if it impacts you or not. I can send you actually stress test so you can actually see and you can actually share with the audience so they can see if the stress is something that impacts in the energy and their quality of life. Sometimes again, I have women who I gave them the test and I would expect them to score crazily, but no, they actually score okay, right? So it really varies from person to person how they are interpreting, how they are reacting to it, right? And again, but being stress resilient, it's something you can do, right? Because unfortunately these days we cannot really control other factors, right? And the point is you need to understand what factors you can control, and then it makes sense to kind of react, right? And what things are just like you have to let go, right? Because there's no point of like, let's say, get aggravated or get upset or get like really are into your head, let's say politics, right? Because it's totally, I mean, again, I get there's some part we can, but it's not something on a daily basis you see, you read, it's in your over modifying, right? So in general, resilience is also built on, first of all, sleep and your food. Because frequently I see people anxious, not because they're mentally anxious, because they're physiologically stressing the system. For example, like interesting example, one of my new patients, she's in her amazing successful woman. She's running a bunch of Airbnbs, but she's taking care of it on her own. And she's a very active person since her childhood. She's like an athletic. She's doing swimming. So she's doing 3 hours of swimming a day. She's doing 3 hours of tango dancing.
Wow.
Right? She's also running. And then she said, why I cannot sleep? I'm like, it's really, and again, overall, because, she's in that kind of postmenopausal age when you gain weight and you just start feeling that yourself, you just overall realize you kind of aged all of a sudden, right? But in reality, she's doing smoothies, she's doing what seemingly on its own separately should be helping her to feel better. But she's like, I never felt so bad. Even though she's kind of right now doing so many healthy tricks and habits, but it's too much. And again, this is where your body is being actually stressed versus kind of it's being helpful and helping the recovery, right? So she's not giving her body basically a chance to even, recover. So too much physical activity also can be actually working against you, right? Because it's kind of activating and also always turning on your sympathetic nervous system. And now she's feeling super anxious no matter what, right? Because again, she has this Airbnbs, but in reality, it's not even that alone. It's basically her doing a lot of cardio, like overdoing, just overall over exaggerating. She made her adrenals even work harder. And that's why she feels anxious even, but she's like, I have a beautiful life. I have nothing to be overall stressed about, but it's just like, she can't even fall asleep. She can't, just get the thoughts out of her head. But in reality, this is the routine that was apparently supposed to be just helpful and healthy that get her in that worse mental state, right? But also, again, first of all, whatever your lifestyle thing, not like making you stress more like sensitive, because again, this is more like boosted her stress hormones because of the boosting adrenaline from all this cardio and just super intense and super long workouts that are like beyond, our overall need. And just kind of too much. So, and then food. Let's say if you skipping meals, right? when your insulin drops, your cortisol, in response to just keep you alert, awake, and just kind of to compensate, will come up. And that's how you're going to be angry, not because you actually like have stress. You're going to be, again, reactive, irritable, and irritated just because your sugar drops and your cortisol is up, and you just reacting like not even in your nature, kind of, right? Because of there's actual physiological changes. So that's why, anyway, even to build the stress resilience and being anxious not from actual stress, because of their supporting their physiology in terms of consistent at least meals that are protein rich, or again, if somebody who's on like vegetarian diet, some type of plant protein. But the idea is, having meals, not skipping meals, and their caffeine has to be like, again, regulated. Caffeine is an amazing thing. I'm not against it, even though I personally figured years ago it doesn't work for me good, but it's overall has really a lot of antioxidants. And for some Americans, overall for some people, it's actually the only source of antioxidants, right? So I don't want to take it away, but just we need to see if it's amount or timing that kind of doesn't work for you. Because genetically, even we have our people who are like slow metabolizers, which is like me, I figured. So that caffeine stays with me. I drink it in the morning. I'm not going to fall asleep even like whatever, 12 hours later. So it has to be small amounts and like only early in the morning. Otherwise, it's going to work bad for my sleep, right? Or quick metabolizers, they can take 5 cups of coffee and be fine, right? But again, depends on, in light of their blood work, we can tell if it's kind of good or we need to adjust the dose, right? The concentration, because it's a very potent medicine, right? Caffeine it's really good substance, but again, we need to see in light of your situation, sleep, and how you react. And again, if you're already stressed out from other things, you don't want to do too much. You can probably have to limit to 1 cup, And again, when you take it, you don't want to take coffee within an hour, about an hour and a half from waking up, because this is when your hormones are overall of cortisol are the highest. It's peaking. You don't want to kind of get into that wave and do another kind of stress for no reason, because also insulin gets involved, and just overall, this is when you can easily make yourself not stress resilient, because you just spiked your cortisol. That first hour especially is a key not to, even though this is frequently the case. But again, it's very individual, but this is what most people would benefit, at least waiting an hour and a half from the time you open your eyes to have coffee, to get more benefits versus like kind of doing potentially like exhausting adrenal glands or kind of making yourself in a fight and flight response.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. So, and it's very interesting how you were talking about your client who's overdoing the cardio, and like, especially I think, you said she was in her 50s. So I would think, as we get to that stage of life, especially, we need to have those more rest days or not overdo it so much. And that's hard because you feel so good when you work out. So I can see.
That's what she was fighting for it, because no, but I love it. It's like, I'm working on my life, but okay, do it, but don't do 70 laps in the pool. Do 20. She's like, okay, I can do that. I was like, I'm not saying you not to do it at all. Like, it's amazing that you actually can do it, because again, the stronger we are, the longer we live. It's about functional longevity.
Yeah.
But you're gonna get, I'm sorry, heart attack on the way to it, because it's just like, it has to make sense, when it's actually supporting your body, or you are stressing it, because the stress in this physiological way, because 2 things, it's actually, let's say, mental stress or physiological, both of them are very deteriorating. They are really screwing up, the same as sleep, it's lowering your immune response, right? So that's, again, the first, unfortunately, quick shortcut for the cancer. Because, the low immune system would be easier way to develop cancers, because the immune system is everything when it comes to, again, not to get the switch on for the potential cancer. Again, why I'm taking cancer, because if we get into like 50s, 60s, the older we are, age alone is a risk factor for any cancer, just because our cells are wearing off, right? It's like about their DNA damage over years, right? So that's where we want sleep and stress. Again, even if you cannot control the things, you want to see what else you can do, either, again, sleep, physiologically, food, to support the nervous system.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I think another stressor you had mentioned with the food is like when we skip meals, and that's something that a lot of women were told we should do, and now we're learning no, especially women. When it comes to food, what else can you tell us that we can keep? You mentioned vegetarian a couple times. I would say, I'm guessing that that's more of a concern because you were not getting as much protein. Is that the concern with that type of a lifestyle?
So overall, look, depending on the life stage, right? Because there's
Okay.
sometimes, because nutrition is a fascinating science, right? There's so many diets, and it seems to me like they all work, right? But then they don't work at the same time at all, right? So it's
Right.
interesting, right? So we had the paleo, the keto, they're like, again, like all this, even, I mean, Atkins, like they're, you name it, right? And they would work, and then we would find why it's bad, right? Or carnivore diet now and everything. So the point with the diet, especially for women, it's very important where in the life stage we are, because it could be very different for reproductive ages, right? Especially like if you are focusing on fertility. Then when you're like in this midlife, when we're like, let's say 40s, it's very tricky too, because you want to do everything to hold on to your hormones. Seriously, everything. Because sometimes we really don't realize until it hits, until menopause hits, actually, oh my God, I don't mind my period, even though it was heavy, or I had PMS, I want it back, because you know what's going to be after like 3 years, especially after menopause. Or again, some people, especially who go through menopause pretty aggressively in a way that's, symptoms are pretty bad, be like, okay, whatever, I would take that versus this, right? Because a lot of diets during this midlife years could screw up your hormones. And this is how we can get ourselves into early menopause. And this is a no-no, right? Because then everything just goes really downhill in no time with hormones being low. So we don't want to do anything that could potentially speed up premature menopause, right? And I do see, unfortunately, a lot of my patients right now that are, look, even in 20s, I'm not even talking like 48 and you get in menopausal, right? No, like in their late 30s, and they come like, oh, I had no cycle for 3 years. I'm like, where you been 3 years? My doctor said you cannot do anything about this. I'm like, this is ridiculous. First of all, you can. Second of all, it's not normal, because then it's really, you have this, whatever, 15 years early in menopause, then you are literally just going to age in no time. Plus, again, it's not about, let's say, oh, let's put you on bioidentical hormones. No, it's actually, you could have helped yourself, and you could have revived your hormones if it's not. And again, I actually had even few women, even in the late 30s, and been no cycle for 3-4 years, and we were able to get them back cycles, right? But better not. So it's not that easy. It's really hard. And more like, I would say, within a year, I had a great time, relatively easy to get this whole hormones back, right? But if it's been a few years, it's already like we shut down, and it's hard. And
Yeah.
again, some people would be having the best intentions how they got into this early menopause, literally just doing a lot of workout, and let's say restrictive diets, right? And again, overall should be good for weight and like feeling good, but it depends on how restrictive you go and how your body is doing with it. Let's say, especially if you people have underlying thyroid, and again, underlying, you might have no clue, because you're waiting, or your doctor is waiting for those numbers to get red and flagged and having a diagnosis. In reality, your numbers were not good, let's say, since even, let's say, early 20s, right? But it wasn't just bad enough. But in these cases, you do not want to do fastings, or there's a way, but it's has to be specific times, and like not extended. So there is still a way, but that's why it's more like you're not doing like 5-day fast, or you're not doing like 500 calories in 40 plus. This is definitely a big no, right?
Yeah.
So again, this would work actually, let's say 50 plus. I mean, when you're on menopause, actually could be helpful to reset your cycle, metabolic clock. When 50s, it's generally speaking, when already menopause happened, right? Because then we're not afraid of this hormonal kind of suppression. And then it could be actually resetting your body and actually giving you this autophagy effect to actually do this biohacking naturally, right? But yeah, it's everything has its time when it's actually good and supportive for your body, and when it's actually can stress it out and get you in a totally different, actually speeding up the aging, and again, like menopausal kind of trends. Yeah. So
Yeah, I think it's really interesting about, it's where we're at in our life stage, like you said, like what we do and how we treat like the way we're eating and the way we're working and moving our bodies and all of that. Is there anything else that you want to mention about, sort of like, depending on where you are in your life, but what we can do if you're feeling off? Because a lot of people, like you said, are lucky enough that it's just some minor changes that we can make, and things that we can focus on, and then we can feel so much better and feel more optimized than a lot of us are just like, I mean, I talk to a lot of women on my show. I talk to a lot of women. I have a lot of friends and they're struggling. So it's like, and I feel like they're so close to not struggling because they are
Right.
doing so many things right.
Yes, exactly. So it's a good point that sometimes it could be truly just optimizing your B12. And again, the ranges are very wide from like 100 some frequently to like 1,000, right? And you would be 300. I feel bad when my numbers are 300. And again, frequently when I had, over the years, some episodes, I was like making myself up autoimmune diagnosis and like some hormonal issues. And I would check, oh, just vitamin D. Oh, just B12. I'm like, no, come on. And I would do it. I'm like, oh my God, like literally in a week, I feel a difference, right? So frequently, exactly, it could be minor things that's easily fixable, right? But again, you might not pick it up because if you're referring to standard testing, it will not be flagged because it's not, because when you see the ranges in the lab, regular labs, when it's flagged, it means pathology, when it means you need medical intervention. When you're going to have symptoms, even let's take B12, easy. If you're in low, you're going to feel numbness, you're going to feel tingling, you're going to be memory, you're going to go to shit, right? But in reality, basically, this is already when you feel it, but you don't have to wait until everything goes so bad that you have neurological symptoms, right? So even if your levels, like overall, you have to be in a top quarter high, right? Not like this again, you're 200 to 1,000, you want to be at least 800. Then this is you optimize this and you still feel low energy, then something is going on, right? Again, magnesium. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share their list of the blood works and some specific ranges to go after, not just to do it, because you might be, especially again, if you're interpreting with a traditional doctor, you might still feel like everything is great looking, right? But you could be feeling better, right? So it's also important what to check and what to look for, not just to see if it got already alarmed or it shows, because it's average more like considerably if you are having a condition that has to be taken care, not looking for optimization. It's just good enough to feel okay, right? Just kind of like not to have a serious condition, right? So it's not meant to be, but it's such a subtle difference, could be huge, literally fine tuning needed, are like minor things you have to do and feel better within a like week, sometimes not even a month, right? So yeah, so this is their list I'll give you. And also for energy, let's say we can focus, I will share kind of energy drainers, energy boosters, and there are things you can try overall that are supplements that are, and foods, and overall you can tell what could be, what you're doing, what you're not doing, right? And see, because from the basics, as you said, even like B12, vitamin D, thyroid in a proper range, but there's so many different, like even antioxidants. Let's say glutathione. Glutathione is a master antioxidant we produce, but with age and oxidative stress, like from environment or even physical stress, oxidation kind of levels could be higher and you might be running low on it. But this is my coffee in the morning, actually. I take liposomal glutathione, and this is like, I know, oh my God, I missed it today because, I feel like that's kind of coffee boost, but without like crush, right? So it's antioxidant. And this is like really powerful for overall. I love it because it's great for skin. It's really kind of part of their famous Cinderella IV drip, right? Because it's kind of has skin lightening effect. So it's great for skin, it's great for liver, it's good detoxification, natural compound. You cannot overdose, right? You cannot overdose. There's never like any contraindication unless active cancer. But again, like the rest is never, you cannot go wrong. So I would say if anything, you can go with the thion. Those are good things. Something more cool, I would say, but it's very different. Also something we produce, but age-wise, going down with basically quickly, is spermidine. It has nothing to do with sperm. It's not done with sperm. It's actually done with wheat germ extract. The only precaution I would say, spermidine, because it's wheat germ, unless somebody is super sensitive to wheat, people who like celiac, obviously, or crazy sensitive to wheat, I would stay away because it's still wheat, right? But it's very different. It activates autophagy, that mechanism of cleaning up our bad cells, kind of. So rejuvenation, energy, brain, amazing, right? But that one you want to do kind of like a higher dose, but we can try even small. So those are kind of things that are like natural antioxidants, and overall you cannot go wrong with them, right? In terms of like, there are a lot of people who cannot do it, right? So And overall antioxidant, even astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is really been known for more like eye health for ages, but overall it's really potent antioxidant for skin and just for joints. And overall, again, antioxidant, anything I would, focus on, because those are kind of things that are fighting free radicals. And again, no matter what we do, we are exposed to a lot of kind of like, this triggers and a lot of pollutants from, again, even stress alone would cause oxidative stress, right? So, and antioxidant you cannot really overdo, because it just gives you this extra buffer from any disease and cancer, because this is your way, your power to fight free radicals that are causing illnesses, cancer, just make you also sluggish and energy being not optimal.
Yeah, I love those suggestions, especially because it's basically what we want: more energy. We want to feel better. Like that's at the end of the day, like the theme of this whole podcast. So I love this. This has been amazing. Can you please I know you have a book. So tell us, and how can people work with you as well? If they want to feel better and like work on optimizing their health, tell us where to find you, all the good stuff.
Yes, even though I'm in Brooklyn, New York, even if you're interested to work with me, but you're out of different state, it's totally fine. I work with patients across the US. We do, Zoom sessions. And if anything, I do prescription for blood work. You go to your local lab and you do those labs, and then we go over those results. So yeah, my website, liveharmoniouslife.com, on Instagram, liveharmoniouslife. And I do have a book that really came out December 30th, 2025, like about 6 months ago. It's Biohacking Regeneration and Health Resilience. It's a harmonious healing blueprint, because it does cover all these three areas in terms of health resilience. Again, it's more being proactive. And again, as we mentioned, stress resilience, because it's one of the major things that's going to screw up so many other systems down the line. Biohacking is more kind of when you want to enhance. This is biohacking makes sense only if you have to exclude basic dysfunction, because if you're trying to biohack, you're going to feel better, but you're kind of going to mask it. That's my point. You want to biohacking is great, but first you want to really make sure there's no underlying conditions, because you say you feel low energy and you're doing red light or you're doing like hyperbaric. Okay, but thyroid will still not really going to get optimal from that. You're going to feel, that's why some people, let's say, they would tell, I don't know how you show me like low iron and low B12, but I feel okay. But because let's say their cortisol is actually extra high, right? So they're going to get this energy from the cortisol boost, and let's say testosterone is good. So they don't feel like completely fatigued. That's why sometimes it's tricky, because your other system can overcompensate, so you don't feel kind of, really being drained. But that's why sometimes you don't feel, because one system is compensating for the other. But it's important to actually put, let's say, cortisol lower and getting energy not through their fight and flight response and adrenaline rush, right? And make it better from the optimal B vitamins levels, right? So biohacking is amazing when your basic functional wellness, everything is being checked out, and you work through those just for enhancement of health. And the regeneration for people who been having chronic issues, right? I do a lot of different treatments, as I mentioned, ozone or overall PRP IV. Not many doctors do PRP IV. We heard of PRP for like beauty, for like, the injections from your own plasma that are for rejuvenation of the skin, face, or joint, injections. But this is intravenous. This is more for conditions that are hard to treat, like even autism. This is one of the main reasons I got this treatment in my practice, because it's one of the best responses I've seen across the board, how kids getting better and getting a solid improvement. So it's good for chronic Lyme, it's good for neurological problems, for autoimmune, for long COVID. I mean, still imagine years down the line, now it's been like 6 years, I do have people who feel everything just started going wrong after COVID,
Yeah.
So, and it's been like not resolved. So this is also helpful for anything inflammation, immune, that's especially been not responsive to many other things or barely responsive. So PRP, true dose, is one of the amazing treatments. The beauty of it, it's super safe because it's your own blood, right? Even though it makes amazing difference in how people feel, it never goes wrong because it's your own blood. And the dose of their platelets is custom. That's the whole idea. I also do exosomes, but again, those are kind of more extra tricks. But and on a lot of platforms, I do share a lot of helpful tricks and tips day to day, and with you guys, we'll share the list for energy, what bloods to check, and also the ranges to go after, because those are essential, not to get tests, but see if you actually fall in that optimal good for like middle-aged women especially.
Okay, perfect. I'll link all of this in the show notes. I think that list will be really helpful because, yeah, if you're going to a doctor and they're like, they look for you and you don't know what to look for, then you just leave feeling terrible because you're like,
right. So
no results.
Yeah, even again, that list is even not the most extensive, because I just kind of not to try to scare the doctor, but it's going to be good enough to start. And again, even if your doctor says, oh, it looks good, go home, check my ranges and see if it's actually good,
Yeah.
because it could be looking not just flag that you have to get prescription, but not optimal, and that what makes people, feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. I appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.